G'day, I'm Tom the Beta Broker. I'd like to talk to you now about a deposit. How much deposit do you actually need to buy a house? Well, the standard doctrine is 20%. So if you have a 20% deposit, then you don't need to pay any lender's mortgage insurance, but then you also need settlement costs and stamp duty. Let's ignore the stamp duty and settlement costs. We're just going to talk about the actual percentage of the house value that you need for a deposit. So 20% is the standard that banks like. So anything below 80% of the actual house value, that banks are quite happy to lend most of the time. So you need that 20% deposit to avoid the lender's mortgage insurance. When you go above the 80% loan to value ratio, that means your deposit is less than 20%, then more than likely you will incur lender's mortgage insurance. So what is lender's mortgage insurance? Well, that's essentially the bank insuring their investment in you. So they go to their insurer and they say, hey, I've lent this much money to this dude. If he can't repay and we sell the house and we don't recover all of our money, can you pay us back the difference? So they're going to slug you, 5, 10, 15 grand in some cases, even more perhaps, depending on the value of the loan, just so that they're safe. It's nothing to do with you, so they are safe, which is fine. They're the ones lending you the money. It's a lot of money. So you need to give the banks their security. Otherwise, we wouldn't have such a strong situation in Australia from the banking perspective. So if you have less than a 20% deposit, you're going to be up for lender's mortgage insurance. Now, what are the different increments? Some banks will go up to 85% in certain circumstances. So they might have a special running. Generally, it means if you've got your owner occupied and you bring across an investment property as well. So if you have two, then they'll cross-collateralize them and they'll lend up to 85%. Cross-collateralization is another discussion we'll talk about later. So they might lend to 85% in some situations. Some banks will go up to 90% for certain professions. So lawyers, doctors, accountants, some engineers, that sort of thing. They'll go up to 90% and they'll allow only a 10% deposit then and no mortgage insurance. So that's pretty good if you are in one of those professions and you want to buy a house but you don't have that 20% deposit. You can buy the house without paying the 10 or 15 grand mortgage insurance, which is great. So most banks at the moment are capping at 90%. So that means they'll lend you up to 90%, including mortgage insurance. This is for investment purposes. A lot of the owner-occupied properties are that way as well now. Sorry, a lot of the banks are lending that way for owner-occupied properties as well. So 90% is where they're capping, but generally they'll allow the mortgage insurance to go above the 90%. So it's 92% in a lot of situations. There are a few banks that go up to 95% for both investment and owner-occupied, and a couple of banks that actually cap above that. So you need your 5% deposit, and then they'll put the lender's mortgage insurance on that. So that means basically you're borrowing 97, 98% of the value of the house, which is very highly geared, and it's frowned upon at the moment. The current environment, all the banks are looking to pay down, or to have their clients pay down debt. The regulators are all looking intently at the banks, and the banks are therefore changing their policies and either lending less or not lending at all in certain situations, just so that people actually have a lower loan to value ratio. Because obviously the lower the loan to value ratio, the more equity there is, which means when there are fluctuations in the property market within this space, it's not going to hurt so much as when you go below this area. So this is what I'm saying here is, if you owe more than what the house is worth, that's where you're in pain. So you want to make sure that the house is worth more than you owe. So that's why the banks want that such a big deposit. So in summary, how much deposit do you need? 20%, you'll be in the clear, no lender's mortgage insurance. Anything less than 20% and you'll be up for lender's mortgage insurance in most cases. And 5% is generally the least amount you'll need in the general banking sphere. There are other options which are a little bit different, but we'll discuss them. If you come to me and ask a specific question, I can answer with a specific answer. Until next time, I'm Tom, the Beta Broker.